Hello everybody, Jose Rodriguez back again. It's almost the end of the week and we're about to get ready for our weekend live stream as we customarily do. But before that, I wanted to sort of talk about, this has been a tumultuous, that's a hard word for me, year that we have gone through, not only with the pandemic, but also with industries basically having to shift to other more important facets of manufacturing, leaving the printers behind. So I want to go over a list of my favorite printers, and not just because I own some of them, but because I really honestly believe these are the best photo printers out there, still available for us to enjoy. And remember, I'm not going to touch on any of the other myriad of other models that are basically not intended for photo printing. We're going to talk about Canon and EPSON, not HP, Canon and EPSON Pro or semi-pro photo printers. And I'm going to start off by breaking this into two categories: printers that we would like to own and we intend to use a refillable type product. In other words, something other than original consumables. Well, today, that doesn't leave too many printers. In fact, probably none. But we'll touch on that a little bit later, and I hope this does not become too long. Best photo printers if you are refilling. So let's touch on the 13-inch capacity printers, and we all know what we're going to be talking about here. EPSON P600, if you can still find one, that printer still can be used with third-party products. There are refillable cartridges available. They look like this. Okay, easy to refill, auto reset chips as well. All you have to do is make sure that they reach empty. At that point, the chip will be then ready to be reset simply by removing the cartridge. At that point, you would top it off, pop it back in. I like to keep the cartridge topped off as much as possible because there is a priming chamber that needs to be kept filled. Otherwise, you will lose your flow. That's the way refillable cartridges work. So what I would do on a P600 is to basically top it off as needed. In other words, when they reach about half full, and you can do that while they are sitting in the printer because they do not move and they're accessible from the top. You can remove that fill plug, add ink, put the plug back on the fill hole again, and you're ready to go. Keep them topped off. That way, when they actually go empty by the chip, they still have ink, and you will never run into a problem where you start introducing air into the ink lines because you ran out of ink, even though your chip said you still had ink. So there's a couple of drawbacks that you have to kind of get on top of as you continue with the process of refilling. But that printer can be used readily today with refillable cartridges, as well as chipless. What does that mean? Well, we'll touch on that a little bit later on. EPSON P400, that took over the R2000, which, by the way, I revived mine after a year and a half of non-use. 2 cleaning cycles is all it took. That's how good those print heads are. Apparently, all I did was pop some OEM cartridges in it and ran a couple of cleaning cycles. I have it in my other room right now actively working, and so I have been able to bring another printer back into the realm, if you will, that I had ignored simply because I just didn't have a need to use it at the time. And now my favorite new printer, the EPSON XP 15000, that uses refillable cartridges as well. The catch is this: sure, you can buy single-use chips, but you know what? The OEM cartridges cost $10. And so does the chip. Imagine that. I would have to spend OEM prices basically replacing that chip because they do not come with a chip, and use third-party inks. Now, what kind of sense does that make? So the best way to do that with the XP 15000 is to install the chipless firmware and refill your original cartridges. Your original OEM cartridges can easily be refilled. And I demonstrated that in a previous video. So that covers that 13-inch with capacity models. We'll go over it again. The P600, P400, and the P400 is actually quite good. It's great for your color type photographs that are going to be printed in, say, something with a shine, luster, glossy, satin, that type of paper, because it really, really works well. And it uses gloss optimizer. Yeah, the photographs that it produces are bright, have a lot of pop. It's not really what you would want to use for very delicate portraiture. Okay, no, this is for photos with a pop. Okay, P400, great little printer, 13-inch capacity. The XP15000, again, like I said, refill your OEM cartridges without any modification required. Okay, and with the chipless firmware, you don't have anything to worry about. And unlike the other 13-inch family of printers, it has a user replaceable waste ink cartridge that you have to exchange once every year at the earliest, $10 every time. When the other printers, waste ink pads get saturated and you have not modified it to catch that ink externally, then you end up having to replace those pads. Sure, you can reset the counters using certain softwares, but those pads are going to be saturated. So for the P600, the P400, I recommend you run the procedure, basically disassembling the side panel and rerouting those waste ink tubes outside into a bottle. Okay, there are many videos on the internet how to do that. And companies like octoink.co.uk have instructions, and they even sell you kits for you to be able to modify your EPSON printers that have internal waste ink pads so that they can collect the ink externally and stop the filling up of those internal pads, which will render your printer basically dead on the water. Okay, 17-inch capacity. And we're still on EPSON, of course, the P800. Fabulous printer, okay? Roll adapter that actually works. I would say the 3880, but that's a very old printer. Unless you can find one that's really in good condition with a low usage, sure, you can use that one as well. And you can use refillable cartridges in it easily. On the P800, well, depending on the firmware version that you may have installed, you may be able to get one run out of the refillable cartridges that you can normally buy. And after that, you have to install the chipless firmware in order to render that printer showing always full capacity. That's what the chipless firmware does. It actually shows your ink levels always being full. And then it's up to you to continue refilling those cartridges. So P800, great candidate for that, okay? Letter size. Some of the XP models and also some of the EcoTank models, although not as good for photos, at least let you print all kinds of other type of documents and also sneak in that occasional photo. It's not going to be the quality of a professional level photo printer, but you will be able to print and also use third-party products with a lot of these L and also the EcoTank variety of printers from EPSON. The only negative is that you're going to pay a lot of money up front because you're going to be paying very little for the inks afterwards. Okay, let's jump over to Canon. As you may know, I just recently purchased a Canon TS8320. It is a all-in-one type printer. Letter size, it can do just about everything, and you can refill the original cartridges by modifying them easily. Sure, they are opaque, but once you modify them and you refill them, all you got to do at that point then is to systematically, one at a time, disable ink monitoring, and then very carefully after that, every so many weeks, top them all off. Okay, and that will get you, I mean, extremely good quality prints. It's amazing how good that printer can print photographs. Not only photographs, but also everything else under the sun. It can do duplex printing for you. My wife absolutely loves it. I have it up in the bedroom right now. It's running on wireless. If she's printing a PDF, it will automatically print on both sides of the paper, automatically flipping the paper over so that it can actually use both sides. And it does that pretty much default, as well as photos, as well as just about anything. Copy, scan, you name it. And it's only $149, okay? And all of these printers that I am discussing right now, precisioncolors.com has ink for them, okay? So that's another one. Again, the only negative is I will have to disable ink monitoring. As soon as one of the channels goes empty, I'll disable it, and then I can just top it off, okay? And I'll be good to go. 13-inch capacity, pro-level photo printers from Canon. The most famous printer in the world, the Pro-100. Unfortunately, that is now out of production. If you can find some at a reasonable price, get them, because there's nothing else out there that is easier to use. The same thing with a Pro-10. The Pro-100 is dye-based, okay? The Pro-10 is pigment-based. So that would be more suitable for fine art printing, okay? The Pro-100, absolutely perfect for printing on all your commonly glossy papers, luster, satin, barita with a slight gloss, all of those. Even canvas that has a slight gloss will work perfectly on the Pro-100. I am currently running Precisioncolors Signature Edition for the Pro-100, and I see absolutely no difference between OEM. In fact, the Pro-100 is actually better because the original OEM inks for the Pro-100 had a problem reproducing reds, and that has been addressed by Canon, okay? And they actually claim it. Precisioncolors took care of that long before the next version of that printer came out. And we'll cover those in a minute. So Canon 100, dye, 13-inch. Canon Pro-10, pigment, 13-inch, easy to refill. By the way, I forgot to show you the P400 cartridges, refillable. And also I show you the 600. Again, these are for other very similar printers, but they look just like that. So now let's talk about the Pro-100. CLI-42 cartridge, already modified for refilling. All you got to do is add ink. We have a resetter for it. Outstanding. Perfect solution. All you have to do is get yourself 2 sets of these cartridges already empty and processed. There's a link on my descriptions to be able to obtain those. And now you just keep a complete set filled and reset. When one of your cartridges reaches low, that means the liquid chamber has emptied and you get a low warning. You remove all 8 of them and replace it with a newly refilled and reset cartridge set. That way all of the ink levels go back up to full, and it'll take you 2 months to reach low. Okay? You reduce the number of cleaning cycles that take place every time you remove just one cartridge for replacement by a factor of 8. Okay? So that is the best idea, the best practice that I can suggest. The same thing with the Pro-10. Original cartridges can be easily refilled. And we also have a resetter, Pro-10, pigment inks. Let them go empty this time. Again, if you have 2 sets, always keep one set reset to full and always filled. That way, when one of them goes empty, in this case, this one here, Pro-100, you change it when it's low. You do not want to lose your sponge saturation. So you're going to wait till it's almost low, remove the complete set, pop the new reset and fill set, and you start up fresh again. You will not have levels at all kinds of different, states. You'll be replacing cartridges almost every 3 to 4 days. Okay, and every time you do that, you waste ink on all the other 7 or 9 cartridges because it runs a global purge or a repriming of the printhead. It has to do that. So keep that in mind. You will reduce your waste ink generation by a factor of either 8 or 10. Okay, take that to the bank. All right, Canon 8320. We discussed that already. And this is what the cartridges look like. And again, they're very reasonably priced. You buy these. They're OEM. I could buy a set of OEM for about $40, okay, which is not bad if you want to go wholly OEM. But you can also modify them for refilling. So that is what we're going to be doing here. So that's the 8320. Okay, it's a little bit tricky because there's no resetter for it. So you will have to modify the cart when each channel goes empty. You disable ink monitoring. There's a procedure for that. We're going to be covering that live on one of the live streams when we get Mike back on the show. Then all you have to do is just kind of keep track, and you could do that by weight. So if you figure out what one of these weighs at the moment when it's declared empty, then you know how much ink to add, because you also know how much a full one weighs. You have to perform these little experiments and tricks. Okay, 17-inch capacity. We all know which one that is from Canon. I'm sitting right next to it. That's my Pro-1000. Awesome printer, what can I say? The only thing that is a negative, it doesn't have a roll adapter like the P800 does. Oh well, we have to live with that. We can actually print on this one, which has an older firmware, 17 by 25.6 max. Okay, so that's a pretty large print. Panoramas, forget it. It would have to be like a 13-inch by 25, okay, or a 10-inch by 25. P800, I can print 17-inch by hundreds of inches, almost 500 inches. So what's the difference between this one and the newer ones? The newer ones would come with an updated firmware, and that will extend that length to 47 inches. So I have been told. So that's not bad. 17 by 47. You have to cut that paper from a roll and somehow manage to feed it straight. Good luck. Okay. But at least you're able to do that. All right. So I know I was talking about refillable printers, and you must be wondering, well, what about this one? Can you actually refill that one? Well, yeah, you can. You refill these cartridges, and we're going to begin to do some modifications to some of these cartridges to allow us to refill them with just simply removing a plug and inserting a needle with a syringe. And that'll be easy. Chips, you need to replace your chips every single time. Single-use chips. And you remove the cap. They already come with a holder attached to the chip. You just replace the black one with a white one. That's all you have to do. Or disable ink monitoring. At that point now, that channel, anytime you do that, and that's only available on Canon printers, you will end up with a blank channel. In other words, no indication of ink even existing will be shown. So you have to kind of blindly keep tabs of your ink levels. We know this weighs 32 grams empty, so we know that it weighs 80 more grams when it is full. You can do the math and figure out how much ink to add. All right, so that covers all of these, my favorite bunch of printers that you are able to refill. We're not going to talk about the Pro One because that's out of production, and I'm going to tell you a horror story this weekend. Okay, so be ready to hear this. Okay, it's going to be fun. Best printers if you're only using OEM inks. Well, all of the previous ones I talked about, of course, can be used with OEM inks, original manufacturer equipment inks. The best way to go, except for the Pro 100. The PCSE inks are actually better. But anyway, yes, you can go with original inks. If you're selling prints, really that's the best thing to do. You're offering your customer who's buying your limited edition prints made with the best inks possible or available. But we have a bunch of new printers that have just recently come out, and we want to stay within the 13-inch and 17-inch capacity. So with Epson, of course, we all know the P700 came out, and that's replacing the P600. And the P900 is the 17-inch version of it. Now, what did they do? Oh, they did a lot. Okay, they did a lot. They finally got rid of that black ink switch valve. Gotta remember that most of these printers were using an 8-channel printhead, and they had to share the black channel because they were using 9 colors, 9 cartridges. So that matte black and that photo black ink had to share the same black channel. That required a valve to allow either photo black ink or matte black ink. And every time you did a switch, it would have to flush out the other ink that was presently in that channel out. And that created some sort of a waste, which people just panicked about and then refused to use the valve as often as they should have been. And the valve began to fail. Now, the P800 still has that valve because they are still using an 8-channel printhead. But somehow, I think they revisited that little problem and improved that valve to the point where, as of yet, I haven't experienced any kind of problem. And I have experienced problems on the other printers that I do own from EPSON using that type of system. So what did they do? Okay, P700, P900, 10 inks, and a 10-channel printhead. Okay, that was it. And that printhead, by the way, is a groundbreaking design. It's an engineering marvel, so I hear. They claim, and this is just a claim, so don't go home and start spreading this, but they claim that you can literally go on vacation, turn off your printer, come back home, power it back on. Yeah, it might run a purge, and it'll be fine. There's really nothing you need to do. The idea of exercising your printer, maybe that's not something we actually need to do any longer because of that new printhead design. But again, this is just secondhand information that has been given to me. So whether it is true or not, you know, I am a warrior, so I would still go ahead and run something from Qimage, schedule a little print just like this every once in a while just to keep it exercised, just to make myself feel good inside, you know, psychologically speaking. So yeah, EPSON printers, new printhead, new all kinds of things, okay? But they're not refillable. And don't even think about third-party products. Don't even think about it. Unless something drastically happens, I don't think there's going to be a future. Now, I received from China for free 2 resetters that claim to be able to reset the P700 and P900 cartridges. And by the way, I think they're identical. It's just that the P700 has been partitioned in half. So it only holds half the volume. 50 ml for the 900, 25 ml for the 700. So that single resetter is supposed to be able to reset those cartridges. I'm still waiting for someone who has a P700 or a P900 with a cartridge that's either almost empty or empty to send it to me. Just contact me. I need a cartridge that has already gone empty to see if I can reset it. I will do the process. I will even modify it for you so that you can then refill it and send it back to you at my cost. I want you to send it to me at your cost, but I'm going to send it back to you reset, hopefully, and then you're going to test it on your printer and see if it works. I need a tester to be able to allow me to finish this basically global test because China is waiting on me to do this. Yeah. So if you own a P900, one of the lucky ones here in North America somewhere, please contact me. Please contact me and send me one of your cartridges when it is almost empty or empty. Canon. Well, the Pro-100 that sold tens of thousands of units has been replaced by the Pro-200. Same cartridges, except this time they are not transparent. They are not transparent. They are opaque. Sure, they're identical. They can be modified the same way we do these, but you will not be able to see your refilling process. You'd have to do it blindly. And there's no resetter, so you would have to then disable ink monitoring or forget about it and just use OEM only. The same thing with the 300. The 300 uses cartridges that are basically identical to the Pro-10. Only the chip is different, okay? The chip has different coating, of course. There is no resetter. Red Setter, the company that makes those red resetters that we use, the USB powered ones, is working on both of those printers to see if they can come up with something. Okay. It's not looking really good at this point. So again, we just wish for the best. If it happens, it happens. If not, then we can also disable ink monitoring. But those printers at this point, just like the EPSON ones, are going to be running OEM inks only. Okay. And I think that's about covers my list of the best photo printers out there at this point. And again, like I said, we only stuck with 13 and 17 inch capacity printers because I don't own any of the 24 and larger inch capacity printers, so I cannot really talk about any of those. I don't know any of the other workforce series of EPSON printers. A lot of those can print photos, and a lot of those can be used with third-party products. Again, I don't own any, so I cannot even begin to discuss them in this video because I can only talk about the ones that I have actually touched. Okay, so that is it about today. Today was a great day. The sleet finally went away. We had 2.5 days straight of nothing but sleet and ice, and so now it's warmed up today. Tonight is going to get cold. It's just, wait 5 minutes. If you're bored with the weather, it's going to change. All right, thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. And as always, happy printing, everybody. Bye-bye.